Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, December 1st meeting of the Bethany City Council. I'll call the meeting to order. Would you please stand for the invocation by Councilmember Lunstra and then remain standing for the flag salute, please.
And we pray together. Father, we come to you tonight, grateful hearts for the opportunities we have, not only as Americans, but as citizens of Bethany and Christians. We pray for this meeting, Lord. We lay it at your feet. We pray for your guidance and your wisdom. We pray for our nation and those who protect our freedoms and their families and our veterans. Lord, we pray for this season that we will always keep you as the reason we celebrate Christmas. Keep that in the forefront of our minds and with our families. And we just love you and praise for all your many blessings. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Please turn and face the flag. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. The first item on tonight's agenda is the consent docket. We have items A, B, and C. Do any of those need to be pulled or addressed separately? If not, I will take a motion on the consent docket as a whole.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Please post your votes. Thank you. Item 2 is call to the public. If any member of the audience wishes to address the council, please step forward to the podium. First, state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. We do have 2 public hearing items on tonight's agenda, so if you specifically want to speak to one of those, I would ask that you wait and speak during that time. Otherwise, please come to the mic. Hearing or seeing none, I will move on to item 3, which is a public hearing item, consideration and possible approval of ordinance number 1910, amending the Code of Ordinances, Title 15, Chapter 159, Section 159.035, pertaining to off-street parking and driveway widths, providing for repealer and severability and declaring an emergency. Item 3A is consideration and possible approval of ordinance number 1910 on reading by title only. Do we have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, please post your votes. Thank you. Go ahead, Dave.
An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bethany, Oklahoma, Title 15, Chapter 159, Section 159.035G, pertaining to off-street parking and driveway widths, providing for repealer and severability and declaring an emergency. This ordinance has 4 enacting sections and a separate Section 5, the emergency clause. The only changes to this ordinance you'll see in your packet, the word cut is deleted twice from Section 2, and 30 is amended to 36. And by deleting the word cut, that means you do not include the turn radius into the width, so it allows a wider driveway. And this, I believe, came to you as a recommendation from the city manager and city engineer.
Let me ask you a question on that particular, the radius. Do you say that we do not have to, we can start the radius on other property than our property or in front of our house instead of, now we have to start at our property line? Right. And make the turning radius there. This one makes the turning radius start 5 foot further.
Gives you a little bit wider room to turn, in particular on the major streets where you have the semi-trucks pulling in to offload. It makes it much easier for them to load and unload their trucks or get in the driveway. With all the modern 3/4 ton trucks that people tend to drive, it just makes it a lot easier to get in and out of your property. Since most of the property is already built, it won't make a lot of difference, but this will help.
But you
some
can
of
go
the
back
newer-
in and replace, you can,
Could. Most
so,
people don't, but they could.
so this particular thing that you're saying we do is allow the turning radius to be moved 5 foot over off of your property line instead of stopping at your property line.
Right, gives them a little more room to turn, so they don't turn and drive on the grass and whatnot. Just cleans up that turn radius a little bit, but in more particular, for the commercial businesses, a lot of the site plans that we've had turned in past years have all requested a larger driveway width, which we've had to say, no, you can't do it at 30 is the maximum, but this way, it gives them enough flexibility to design it to meet their needs. That's the reason for it. The P and Z thought was a good idea as well. So they recommended approval of the ordinance.
Okay.
I have a question. Is this just for future construction?
Yes.
Okay.
But you can go back and have your driveway enlarged to take in this ordinance change.
Absolutely. A lot of people have one lane driveways as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So this would, but in the residential neighborhood, they would still be limited to the 25 feet. So it's 25 in residential and 36 in non-residential
Instead of 30.
instead of 30.
Any other questions
So
of staff?
that would mean that you can, I'm just trying to get this in my head. That would mean that you could place your driveway at the property line.
Yes, it's already there, almost. This is the way the radius works. But it gives you a little more room to turn. That's the
And-
entire purpose of it.
And B, I can't see where the, you know, you're infringing on your neighbor's property. But that is also city property, being the right of way.
Right. Well, it's not the city's property, we just have a right of way to use it for the street.
So it's actually the homeowner's property.
Right.
So this is commercial only that we're talking
No.
about, is that
Well,
correct? You're talking about the cut
The
is
cut.
going to change in residential, and you're
Yes.
saying that it's going to allow me to put part of my driveway on my neighbor. Is that what you're saying?
No,
Would not.
well, the turning radius, well, just take your property line, your driveway can set up on your property line. You can come out and make the turn at where the city building line is, or the beginning of, what does that call it? City building line?
Well,
The right of way,
The right of way,
okay. You can start at that point and make the 5 foot radius out to incorporate the entry to your, and it will spill over on your next door neighbors.
it wouldn't spill over on your next door neighbors because you wouldn't be able to build on their property.
No, you wouldn't, but it spills over on the right of way.
Right.
Here's a little picture that I've drawn. Under the old ordinance, on the driveway, it would say the 25 feet would be from where you started turning out here on the street, where you started making the turn. That was included in the 25 feet. Now the 25 feet is just the driveway itself. You're excluding that corner.
Yes,
Makes
Yes,
it easier
and
to
and
turn.
it also makes 5 feet less space that could be parked on the street. Because you cannot park in the turning radius of a driveway. So it's on a 70-foot lot, you're down to 60 foot, you take 25 foot out of that, you're down to, let me get my head together, you're down to 35 or 40 feet. You're down to 35 feet. And that will just barely park 2 cars with no room between them. which, you know, I can see where this would be a major advantage to a lot of lots that are narrower, that have this restriction of the 5-foot rollback. But I want us to be absolutely understanding that it's going to take 5 foot more parking out of the street, because you cannot park in a rollback or in a turning radius.
You can't park in front of a driveway. I don't remember anything about parking in the turning radius.
Well, if you put your driveway all the way over to your property line, which you will do to get this taken care of, then you take 5 foot out of it.
Yeah, the ordinance does prohibit parking in front of a driveway.
Yes, in front of the driveway. Actually, I believe it's you have some setback other than that.
Most people are polite enough not to park in front of your driveway without asking.
I don't-
So
I
it
don't,
hasn't-
I
hasn't
don't,
been
I
an
don't
issue.
think so. I just don't think so.
Do you have any other staff report, or
No, that's it.
are there any other?
This will help as we redevelop Bethany. We have a lot of our people that are asking for a wider driveway. We're trying to accommodate redevelopment, and this is one thing that will especially help the commercial areas. That'll be a good change to help them. One more little bit of encouragement, so they don't have to come and ask you for a variance on a driveway that other cities would allow. Right, that's the only width we're changing. The other width is staying the same. The 25 feet for residential stays the same.
But it does, I mean, as the discussion has said, that it's actually moved the way it's measured, though, so it actually is enlarging
And that's
the
the way
drive.
most cities already measure it that way, is the width.
So the concern that you have is, Councilmember Shirey, are you worried about people that are wanting to park on the street? Are you worried that people aren't going to be able to park all their cars now? Or tell me what you're thinking.
Well, what I'm thinking is it will lessen the amount of property, lessen the amount of footage, and cause it to be more constrained in parking in the street. There'll be no room between,
Is
no
that a
room
bad
between the
thing?
two vehicles. And I know, I'd like to get everything off the street, but there are neighborhoods in this town that just cannot do that. I like the idea of widening out that, because it makes it much easier to get in and get out of your driveway, particularly if you have a 25-foot boat sitting in it,
Or a 3/4 ton pickup.
or a 3/4 ton pickup that's got dual wheels on it and it's 8.5 foot wide.
Well, I'd like to also remind us that this is a maximum width. As a property is being drawn out and designed, it can be less. It doesn't have to be this wide, and if it's deemed that it's necessary for it to be less, then you're back to where whatever is deemed appropriate by the homeowner and our architect or who's ever drawing it up. So this is just a maximum that we have to go by.
In our wards, Mr. Shirey, we probably have the majority of the skinny streets you're talking about, and most people are not gonna go back and, I don't believe, go back and redo their driveways right when we pass this.
And honestly, if it does, it helps alleviate some of that traffic that's on the street, off of the street,
Right.
onto a drive. I mean, it actually helps the parking situation, that in theory, there would be less cars, you have more room to park them
Well,
up.
but I would feel much more comfortable to increasing that driveway width to 30 feet. Because
So you wanna- you actually
we
wanna
don't
go
have any
wider?
problem increasing the footage on commercial, the extra 3 feet from 33 to 36, and allowing that driveway to be that wide.
Then you're gonna start stacking up more cars in the driveway.
That's right. Gets them
And-
off the street. And I know that the movement of vehicles up and down the street in most areas that are limited to 26-foot streets is very precarious at night, and particularly when we have to run one of our larger fire engines down that street, as well as an IMSA vehicle. They
But I
have to
don't-
be very careful.
If you widen it to 30 feet, then they have to pour more concrete too, because it's got to be a solid surface. The entire thing's gonna have to be bigger too.
A 4,000 pound or 3,500 pound.
I don't think we want to widen it any more than the 25 and changing the cutout language on that. I think one of the big reasons you have the wider in commercial is due to the fact of the size of vehicles trying to turn into in order for deliveries.
We have had a major jump in vehicles in the last 25 years, particularly big pickup trucks that take up space even more than, cars.
Mr. Mayor, are you ready for a motion?
Well, it is a public hearing item, so let me open the floor for discussion from anyone from the public. Anyone care to address the council on this issue? Hearing or seeing none, item B is consideration and possible approval of sections 1 through 4 of ordinance number 1910. I would entertain a motion.
Who made the motion?
Nobody. I'm entertaining one at this
I'm
time.
ready to make a motion. I move we accept the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Committee and approve the ordinance that would change the driveway width for commercial properties from 30 feet to 36 feet.
Just for A, B, and C or same thing?
That'd just be for 1 through 4. So for clarification, does that remove cut from the residential district?
Yes, as stated.
Okay.
So let me review this again. When you reach your property line, which is the front right-of-way line, you can increase it to any width you want to increase it to.
And that'll just be approach.
Just the approach.
This is just the approach, it's gonna
Just
be
the
20,
approach.
okay.
So are we leaving cut in or taking cut out?
Cut is coming out.
Cut is coming out.
On both of them.
In other words, as presented by P and Z.
Is the motion to approve sections 1 through 4 as written?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that'd just be 1 through 4.
Okay.
Without what?
It's just 1 through 4. No emergency clause, just 1 through 4. The emergency's separate. Okay, any other questions or discussion? Please post your votes. Okay, item 3C is consideration and possible approval of section 5 of ordinance number 1910. John states that there is no need unless somebody just wants to make that motion.
I make that motion.
To approve the emergency section?
Approve the emergency section.
Okay, do we have a second?
Because it's enabling, and there's a clear majority on the council that want it.
Okay, so we have a motion for the emergency clause. Do we have a second?
I'll make the second.
Okay, please post your votes for the emergency section. So that fails. Okay, item 4, public hearing item as well. Consideration and possible approval of ordinance number 1911, amending the planned unit development zoning ordinance of the city of Bethany, Oklahoma by amending the planned unit development master plan and design statement for the property described as Lot 1, Block 1, Sandlian addition to Bethany, Oklahoma County, Oklahoma, commonly known as 5920 North Rockwell, Bethany, Oklahoma, by allowing the addition of 8 additional buildings for storage use, providing for repeal or severability, and declaring an emergency. Item 4A is consideration and possible approval of ordinance number 1911 on reading by title only. Do we have such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, please post your votes for reading by title only. Go ahead, David.
An ordinance amending the planned unit development zoning ordinance of the city of Bethany, Oklahoma by amending the Plan Unit Development Master Plan, pardon me, and design statement for property described as Lot 1, Block 1, Sandley, in addition to Bethany, Oklahoma County, Oklahoma, commonly known as 5920 North Rockwell, Bethany, Oklahoma, by allowing the addition of 8 additional buildings for storage use, providing for repealer and severability, declaring an emergency. This ordinance has 6 enacting sections and a separate section 7, the emergency clause.
All right, John, do you have a staff report on that? Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. First of all, let me explain kind of why we're here, first of all. The PUD isn't an actual PUD the way it stands right now. The only reason that we're amending it is because they're wanting to have the addition, and because it wasn't in the original PUD as a potential addition, then we are having to come before you and present this as an addition to the PUD. So that kind of gives you a little bit of background on what we were doing here. As was stated, this is for a PUD amendment for the used store that's up on 50th and Rockwell area. The existing lot characteristics, it is about a little over 5-acre lot. There are currently about 21 mini warehouse storage buildings that are on the property. The proposed is an additional 8 storage buildings, and the water line is along Rockwell, and the sewer line is on the north side of the property. The original PUD states that it was approved in 1995. There's 21 buildings plus an office building that was approved. No outside storage was permitted. Building setbacks will be 25 feet. There will be a 6-foot-high stockade fence around the entire property. There will be a 24-hour access gate and on-site management, and no building will be over 1 story tall. The buildings will be constructed out of masonry walls with brick facades. Roofing is composite shingles. Exterior walls will be painted a neutral color in order to blend in with the residential nature. The lighting is a sodium vapor or LED mounted on the buildings itself, and it will be no taller than the height of the guttering in order to protect so the lighting doesn't filter over into the residential areas. The amendments, the only change is additional 8 mini storage buildings, sizes of 30 by 60 feet. And I'll show you the location of where those will be here in just a second. The new buildings were not a part of the original master plan, which is why we're having to go through the P&Z and City Council process. There have been no letters of protest that was received. We had a few phone calls and a few questions regarding primarily about the drainage in that area, and a few questions about the staffing that was promised originally. And to kind of inform you on the process of what we're doing is the city engineer nor myself has went over the site plan because we want to get the approval that they are allowed to even be able to amend the PUD, and then it'll go through the site plan review process, which will include a full review of the drainage and all that. So all those drainage issues that are questioned will be addressed before the site plan and everything is approved. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval for the PUD to be amended. Here is an aerial of the property, and then building addition is going to be right here where it's outlined and dark there. That's where the new addition is going to be. Kind of what it looks like now, and here's a site plan of what they're wanting to do. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and then we also have some representatives from the company and an engineer that they've been working with as well.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
In this drawing that you're showing, is there a little, this one has a little wing on it.
Yes.
So is that not included?
That original, here's kind of the aerial there. That kind of wing that's there is,
The
there's
little
a,
box is what we're talking about tonight, right?
right, yeah, that's the
So-
amendment.
So this little area is not included in,
That whole, it's kind of a pan
we're
shape on it.
extending the south.
Right, right. They
Yeah.
own that property down there.
Okay.
And they originally stated in the PUD that they might look into expanding, but they never put it in the master plan.
Okay.
So that's why they have to go back and get the master plan remanded.
Then in my second question is, in the original PUD,
Mm-hmm.
Is there a residence there?
The office has like an apartment, kind of a residence, if you will. It has a
Well,
man
I
and woman
noticed
that lives
what
there.
you showed the office, but it
Right.
didn't say.
It has living
apartment.
quarters in the office.
Okay, so that was okay back originally?
Yes.
Okay.
What I've had some people call stating that there is not somebody there on site all of the time. And they would request that there be someone there on site because of noise and different things that happen because it's 24-hour.
Correct.
So is that going to be addressed, or is that going to be enforced, or?
That was originally stated that it would be that way, and I know we have a couple of people that actually work there that's here tonight. They can potentially answer that question if you'd like to talk with them.
Hello.
Hi, my name is John Nusser, excuse me, John Nusser, and my wife is Sherry Nusser. We're the on-site managers there at U-Store. We've been at this particular one for a little over 2.5 years, and we're the on-site managers. We have an apartment there, a 2-bedroom apartment, and we have our son that lives with us there. And we can't be there 24 hours, 7 days a week, but we live there. That's our apartment. That's where our residence is at. And so if there's any complaints or any questions, you know, people can contact us during business hours and all that.
I think there may have been an issue with an alarm going off or something. I can't remember exactly, but it was something that
Yeah.
caused an issue, and there was no one that they could get a hold of, and it was
Right.
very distressing.
It was actually the managers before us. They were there for how many years? 4 or 5 years. And we haven't had that problem since then. We have a whole new alarm system that's been put in place at this U-Store. And it's a wireless alarm system. So if somebody doesn't put in a code or something like that, the alarm will go off. It only goes off for 5 seconds, and then it will go off. And then we will go out and investigate and see, you know, what the alarm is about. But since we've been there for the 2.5 years, we've had no problems, actually. And the new alarm system is, you know, it really works well, and so it doesn't go off nearly like the old system used to do. It was a wired system, and they had, you know, contact issues and just all kinds of stuff. And so we really don't have any problem with that at this point. It may have been in the future, or, you know, in the past, but not now.
Now, I don't recall when they said that this actually happened, but that was one of their concerns, is that
Right.
there is someone there to help with noise, because it
Right.
is 24.
Yeah, it's 24
Seven.
hour, it's 24 hour, 7-day-a-week access, but, you know, we're on-site managers and we still have a life. And we, you know, still leave and stuff like that, but.
So there's no way to have somebody there when you're taking vacation or whatever you refer
Well, there
to,
is.
whatever.
We actually have relief managers and stuff that are there that they'll stay on site if we're gone on vacation or anything like that. I know that used to be a problem, but I guarantee it's not a problem now. And especially with the new alarm system, and it's very precise, and it's really a good system. And we haven't had any problems since we've been there 2.5 years, so.
Okay. Do you know if we've had any calls or complaints throughout the 2.5 years? Does anybody remember or hear?
I have had 0 people ever call me and complain about this facility.
Okay.
Tonight's the first I've ever heard there was ever an issue.
Well, and I was just called, you know, the last month probably
No
about
one
this
has
before.
called me since 25 years it's been there, or 20 years.
And I believe the person that you're talking to
Uh-huh.
was one, if it's the same one,
Am I-
she's, sorry. If it's the same person that I was talking to, this person was saying that it was quite a while ago that
Was
this
it?
occurred.
Okay.
And she said she didn't have any problems with the way it was currently being done. So I have a feeling that what he was discussing kind of solved the problem.
Okay.
But I don't, it may have been a different complaint, but that's, the lady I talked to mentioned similar things.
Thank
The,
you.
the alarm horn is right in our attic area, and so, believe me, we don't want to hear
Don't wanna
any
hear that
alarms
either, do
either,
you?
so we take care of it.
Well, and our police department should have that contact information, and I
They
would
do.
assume we would make sure that that's updated when this new edition goes in. But we should have a way of contacting a minimum of a couple of parties in case
Our,
they weren't there.
Our supervisor in the area in Oklahoma City, I'm sure he's one of the contacts that they have, and so if there was anything like that, if we're, gone away from there, they'd be able to get a hold of somebody.
Is there a posted phone number on the fence or something where?
It's
people-
right on our sign, it has the phone number there.
Is the facility, what are the hours of the facility?
The hours?
The
10 to
people can get-
6.
Can they get in there after hours?
Oh, yeah, it's 24 hours. They have a gate. They put in their code, and then that releases the alarm on their unit. They go and do whatever they're going to do, and then when they leave the exit, they put in their code, and then that rearms their alarm.
Okay, so
24 hours.
if somebody has equipment back there that butts up to the residential and all you have is a stockade fence, do you think that's sufficient to deal with noise at night?
Yeah, well, there's no on-site parking,
Okay.
so it's everything has to be in a unit. So that's the whole thing. I've never heard any complaints about noise or
Okay,
anything like
I'm
that.
just asking.
Yeah, because it's just storage units, that's all it is, and people, come and go, and we have several, like, lawn businesses that, they have to be able to get in early to get their equipment out, and then they leave and stuff, but nothing with,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I just want to be sure that we don't have a noise issue.
Oh, yeah, the noise is minimal.
Okay.
Well, you're considering this as a state-of-the-art storage facility.
It is,
It is a state-of-the-art storage facility.
Right.
Which has all the bells and whistles that one in a big city would have.
right,
And the only soft spot in this is if you want to take your wife out to dinner or maybe go shopping in the late evening.
There
This
won't
is
be
why,
something
this,
like
this is why you're not there.
correct,
And then you have a person or persons that take over your end of the business if you are gone
vacation or anything like
for
that.
more than a couple, 3 hours.
Correct.
And there's also that couple of 3 hours is monitored by a number that will tell them to call a supervisory manager or something.
Well, it has our business number on the sign out there, and then if they had any, real emergency, they would call the police, and the police have all the contacts. The Bethany police have all the contacts, if they had to get a hold of somebody for an emergency situation or something like that.
Or if it was just a noise issue. I mean, if
Yeah,
you've
no,
got a
but-
noise complaint, call the police department. They're the ones that handle that.
Correct.
Well, we have noise issues, we have 7,000 noise issues in Bethany. Every house has this same problem, it can have noise added.
Right.
And this is just a building, and there's several buildings up and down the street which could have noise problems.
Sure.
And if they are, they contact the police.
But if
It's a
that's,
nuisance.
right, if that's disturbing your peace, then you
It's
have the right to
disturbing my
report
peace,
that.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. The only other thing is, goes back to the city. This is only what we're passing tonight? The ability to allow these folks to move ahead one more step.
That's correct.
That's correct, yes. This tonight is just basically to allow them, you guys are approving to allow them to amend the PUD to have the opportunity to have these buildings in place.
That's part of our city ordinance.
Correct.
So if they do not do this, they do not carry on forward with this improvement project, then at what time do we back out of it and say, come back again?
If it's approved tonight, then the only way that you guys would see it again is if the site plan or something like that did not follow the ordinances. And then you guys would see it again. If you guys decide to decline it, then it would stop here and it wouldn't go any further.
Okay. We're talking about an addition of 14,400 square feet.
Right.
And that's going to have some drainage issues.
Correct. And Steve Caton will look
And
to.
and those will be addressed whenever they turn in their site plan for their building permit.
That's correct.
And if
Thank
that
you.
doesn't meet Mr. Caton's muster, then we'll definitely see it.
Okay.
That's correct.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Were there any correspondence letters?
No, there was not any letters of protest or anything like that, no.
All right. Any other questions of staff? Okay, this is a public hearing item. If anyone wishes to address the council on this issue, please step forward to the podium.
I am Connie Thomas. I am the neighbor directly to the east. My only concern is drainage. Since the property was built in '95, we have a small drainage issue directly east of where the new buildings will go, which I've just shown on this map. So I would just request that in the site plan, the civil engineering, that they would make sure that the grading will go to the west and not to the east.
Is your house at the end of 57th Street? The
No, yeah, it faces Mueller.
Say
It
again?
faces Mueller,
faces north.
Yeah.
Yes.
So her western property edge would be the eastern boundary of this project.
correct, yes.
She has a lot east to west lengthwise.
One of your houses on that dead-end street.
No, their property is on Mueller. Their property fronts Mueller.
Fronts Mueller.
And
Okay,
it
okay.
backs up, I mean, in the map, you see the drainage circle is on her property. Her property extends east from there,
You have
correct?
that lovely house that's up there on the end of 57th Street that has the big gate.
No,
Oh, that other property's right there. Okay, her property's right there. Okay, so it comes in off of Mueller Street. And you have that building that's sitting right next to it. And you want us to make sure that the drainage goes back to the west, if that's where it's caused at.
correct.
That's a reasonable request.
Thank you.
And their detention on that property, or retention, whichever it ends up being, is out towards Rockwell, and it runs on that north part of the property. On that map, you can see it as a spot next to some buildings. Looks like it has some shrubs around it.
Depressed grass area out
One-
there.
So that all is supposed to drain that direction, so one would assume this would probably end up that direction as well, or should, which would be the opposite direction of you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Should.
Oh, I see that house, yeah, okay.
Are they through with me? Are you through with me?
Unless you have some other comments.
No?
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mark Grubbs, Grubbs Consulting, on behalf of the applicant, address 1819 South Morgan Road. I am the engineer on this project. Just really quickly, since she has the concern, we'll go over that. On this map, you can see the same layout that you've been shown on the screen tonight. The proposed addition is here. Your existing detention pond is here. We have designed the drainage in such a manner that goes up here to the northwest corner of the new addition and will continue to the detention pond. We've already completed the engineering drawings on these. They are submitted to the city. They're reviewed by the city. If there's any problems with the city, they'll come back to me and we'll address those issues. But we have curb on the south, we have curb on the west. All the drainage goes up to the northwest to the existing detention pond, and everything flows away from the lady to the east.
But you do not have a curb on the east.
There's no need for it, sir. It all flows away from that property line.
Okay.
I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Will the new buildings be identical to the ones that are there now?
I'm
These are
not the
most
architect,
attract-
I'm just the
okay.
engineer, and you don't want an engineer designing a building. We build the box and paint it white if it's mine.
These are the most attractive storage buildings I've ever seen, so I want to commend you for that.
My name is Will Floyd. I'm the regional supervisor for Sandlian. The new buildings will be a hip roof design rather than the gable style that's there now. It's much more attractive, a lot better wind resistance, and as far as drainage goes off the roofs and stuff too.
And of course, that really won't be visible from your main traffic thoroughfare being Rockwell. It would only be visible to these few residents around there, but the fact, I guess, that it's
Right.
of similar construction brick-wise.
Pardon me? Yes,
It'll still
ma'am.
be the brick.
Yes. They'll look just like the buildings that are there, except they'll have a hip roof design.
Hip roof design,
No gables.
no gables.
I do have another question. I
Go
think,
ahead.
concerning the drainage. Um, Because it's been stated that there is a drainage issue right now, or a concern. Is that a drainage issue?
I'm not aware of the drainage issue. I was going to ask that staff provide me a copy of what she provided to you so I could look at it. If I get it tonight, that's fine. If I don't, I have access to the city staff, so,
Go ahead and take this.
yeah.
and,
I'll be happy to look at it when we.
Now, I just want to be sure that there's not water from the facility currently somehow getting onto her property. And of course, I definitely don't want any more water going onto her property.
I was not involved in the original design, so I'm unaware of that, but I've currently been involved with them in the last 3 years, and I can just assure you that this phase will have no impact to our property, so.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask you some more questions about, where is the water? Can you see the water coming onto your property, and where is it coming from, or how's it getting on your property?
No, I have not seen the water. Of course, I'm not out there just looking.
Right.
But when we mow with our riding lawnmower, it has a tendency to get stuck, and we have to pull it out. But it's only in that area where I showed the circle, which is right in front of where the new buildings will go.
But
But-
being is that that's going to be an improved surface and be regraded and such with concrete, I'm sure. There's a good chance that would alleviate any problem she's having of it just coming back under the fence from probably not being on a grade that it will be, I'm sure, with this. But we all know Mr. Caton would definitely let us know if he doesn't agree with what's presented.
Thank you for your
Thanks.
discussion.
The first thing across my mind, though, and I have every bit of faith in Mr. Caton and his discernment, but if that is a low spot where that circle is indicated with drainage, it will still be a low spot in the future, and water tends to go to a low spot. And so until that low spot is corrected, you may have continued problems as you do today, even though they may curb the east side to correct the flow of water away from to the west, but a low spot is a low spot, and until that is corrected, it may continue. So I just want you to be aware of that as well. Impact may not come from this property, and I promise you it won't if our city engineer gets a hold of it, and he will. But you still could have that low spot in that southwest corner.
I do understand that. This is a property that my husband's father owned. We did purchase it from Mr. Sandlin. We did not have that problem before the storage building was built. And so that's why we felt like it might be, from the building of that. But I do understand if it's graded correctly, that it could solve the problem.
Any other questions of staff or representatives that are here tonight? Okay, if not, I'll go to item 4B, which is consideration and possible approval of sections 1 through 6 of ordinance number 1911. Do we have a motion on the item 4B?
I make a motion that we move forward with what's been presented to us.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Please post your votes. Thank you. Item 4C is consideration and possible approval of section 7 of ordinance number 1911, the emergency section.
I believe this does need an emergency section because of their plans, so I do move that we approve the emergency section.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Please post your vote.
Read me the motion.
It's for the emergency section, approval of the emergency section.
Go ahead.
Okay, please post your votes. That failed, David, is that correct?
Let's see, we had 6. 4, 5, 6. No, that did not pass. Did not.
No. It failed.
Take 7
It was
votes.
6-2 to
pass
1.
emergency.
Item 5 is discussion, consideration, and possible action concerning the hiring, appointment of an interim city manager with a proposed executive session as authorized by the Oklahoma Open Meeting Act 25 OS 307B1. I guess the first motion, should there be one, would be whether or not to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Knapp. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. This is for executive session. Please post your votes. Thank you. We will recess and be as brief as possible in executive session. All right, I'll call us back to order here in regular session. Item 5 was discussed, but I believe no motion will be made tonight on that item. Item 6 is consideration and possible action concerning procedure, timing, and qualifications for the selection of a replacement manager. Somebody want to take that one?
Was this not a duplication of our special meeting?
It basically was, and what was discussed in that is that we will put together a list to send an RFQ out to for some firms to give us their qualifications to look on a search for a city manager. That will probably be sent out a week from tomorrow, with receiving those back by January 6th, I believe it is. And then going from there to determine which firm will be hired. Item 7 is consideration and possible action to direct the preparation of documents for submittal of charter amendments to the voters in the spring of 2016. John, did you have something on that?
Councilmember Holloway asked if this be placed on the agenda, so I'll let her,
I have a question. Back in 2003, I think there were changes made to the charter in several areas. Was there a charter review committee? Were citizens involved? What was the process from those of you who were here in 2003?
I was here, and the answer is yes, there was a citizens review committee.
How many were on that committee?
I don't remember.
We'd have to go back and look and
Yeah, that's
find
been,
some of those
a long time ago.
minutes.
I would just suggest that a citizens review committee is a good mechanism to have suggestions for the charter review come from the citizenry, who will then be voted on it. And, you know, we could each appoint someone from our ward to that committee and have them meet and bring recommendations back to us. But that seems to be a good mechanism for thinking of everything that should be included and looking at it overall, not just piecemeal. I'd be prepared to make that motion if there's an interest.
Let's talk about it.
Go ahead.
If you're making a motion, I'll wait.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I move that each city council member appoint one registered voter from their ward to serve as a member of the Citizen Charter Review Committee to provide recommendations for charter revisions to the council by a set date. I suggested February of 2016, but it could be any date that worked, and we wanted to include.
Okay, we do have a motion. Is there a second?
Are you gonna put a date in February? February 1st, February 27th, 25th?
I'll say the first meeting of February, whatever that is.
First what?
Meeting.
First meeting. in
First Tuesday in February. So that's February 2nd? And that's to have that group in place by then?
No, the group would be in place before then. They would bring back their recommendations then.
Okay.
If we are wanting something, I think this indicated charter amendments to the voters by spring. I'm making an assumption that there isn't enough time to do that with the charter review committee. And I don't know why spring is mentioned here. So I don't have that information.
I'll tell you one reason it's mentioned, that's the first time you could have an election.
When's the second time?
Several times later in the year,
Fall,
yeah,
maybe.
summer,
And we
fall.
probably don't want it on the presidential election.
I don't believe we can. That date isn't open, is it, the
What's that?
presidential election?
We wouldn't want it then anyhow.
I don't believe that Tuesday was available to us.
No, I don't think it is either.
Okay.
You're saying to have the committee report back to us, you gotta form the committee, how are we gonna get them together? What's your plan?
We would nominate one person from each ward to be on the committee.
Well, you
They
said
could
one
elect-
each council member. so
Each council
Yes.
member appoints one person.
Okay,
From their ward.
okay.
She specifically stated a registered voter.
So that would be
No
nine
other,
on
no
the
other
committee.
qualifications other than a registered voter.
Within your
Within
ward.
your ward.
That's what the motion was.
They
Is-
could choose their own chair, or we could choose a chair. I mean, that would be up to them.
You know, if that's your proposal, I think, you'd almost need to give the group some autonomy on how long they had to bring back the recommendation.
Well, that was,
because
that was February, February 2nd.
I say though, if they might only be able to meet once in that period of time, and
Charter's too much for that.
Can we discuss it, or are we waiting on a second?
We can change the
Well,
date.
do we have a second?
I would amend for the date.
Is there a second on that motion? Okay, so that motion will die for a lack of a second. Mr. Moore, did you have something you wanted to ask?
Yes, thank you. There's two things at work here, and I think everybody knows it. Most everybody's aware of what we went through this year. And we have a problem, and it was exposed this year. And it's got to be fixed. It's a matter of right versus wrong. It's not opinion, it's not debate, public debate, it's not debating all these other, our entire Constitution, basically, our charter. Debating the merits of each thing that's going to be politicized to death. What we're looking at is fixing what's right. doing the right thing. There's no question about what the right thing to do is. But it's going to get watered down by political means. And no matter what the cost is, it has got to be fixed. I'm talking about the three-quarters majority vote. Right now, the citizens are unprotected, completely unprotected. They've been going along for 100 years thinking they were protected. Lawsuits were flying all over the place this year. Everybody operated under the theory, if you mailed out a protest letter, you had X amount of people protested, it went to a three-quarter majority vote. Everybody was wrong. It doesn't happen that way. Our charter needs to be fixed. Tulsa went through it. Tulsa fixed their charter. That is not a political issue. It's a matter of doing the right thing. And we have got to do that at the earliest possible time to do it. And not argue about amendments or about charter changes. We don't need to throw the whole thing out. We've got one problem. We've got to fix it. And the citizens right now are unprotected. I don't want to use a word lie, but there was some serious misrepresenting that went on this year. Serious misrepresenting that went on. Everybody operated under the theory that if the citizens didn't want something, it went to a three-quarter majority vote. It said that in our ordinance. That ordinance was thrown out. We have got to fix that charter as soon as possible and not argue an ongoing debate. We've got to fix that one thing.
Mr. Moore, I don't disagree with anything you've said. A fantastic speech with a lot of fervor. So what?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Can I get an autograph?
Yeah.
No, but what would be your proposition?
My proposition is
go forward.
We can take a vote if we need to, a week. We can discuss the entire charter, if we want to. But we have got to fix that one item, just like the city of Tulsa did. The city of Bethany wrote letters to the citizens with my name on it, with your name on it. But the letters that went out were a misrepresentation. And I'm using that word lightly, on purpose.
So
We have got to fix that.
So do you want to make a motion, or should there be a motion to have that one charter item listed to go for the spring of 2016?
I think
Is that
we
what
need to
you're
do that.
wanting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because I don't believe that we're going to come to any agreement on changing the charter with all the things that need to be or want to be done.
That has to go to a vote of the people.
Right.
So, Mr. Attorney, how does that need to be worded? And I'll make a motion for that.
Well,
I'll second it.
those documents are prepared. The only thing that needs to be done is the dates filled in. This came before the council, I believe, in April, and then I think it was again on the agenda in September, I believe. And the only thing I might add to what you're talking about is in March of 2017, which is your primary election, that is not a date that an election will be held by the county election board. So if you want to have an election on that date, you'll have to conduct your own election.
So we need to have two things on this spring of 2016?
Certainly
is that
be
what
my
you're saying?
recommendation you fix that, because it's going to be a problem if you don't. Every year, the legislature has limited the number of dates that cities can have elections. And I talked to the Secretary of the State Election Board recently and was advised that there will be more bills this coming year to further limit that. And it's going to be my suggestion that we have some language in the charter that says when the state outlaws us holding an election on a date set in the charter, the city council can set a new date, so that every time the legislature changes their mind about when we can have elections, that we don't have to amend the charter, and that's where we are now.
Okay, so could someone just kind of, I'm looking to see what could be an issue with that, if the council can change the date themselves or set a date themselves?
Well,
Could
it
you
would
get a-
only be if you couldn't hold the election on the date stated in the charter.
Could we say something to the effect that the elections would be held coinciding with the current election board.
Well, that's not gonna work either, because you don't know what months they're gonna eliminate.
If you're doing it by their standard, then it can be anything.
Here was my thought, would be that you pick a new date, possibly in February, for the primary election, and then have language in there saying that in the event state law barred elections on that date, the city council would select the date of that election. Otherwise, you gotta go back and amend your charter again, which is okay, that's what we've always done
The charter
before.
can't stipulate that the dates are a spring date, or the
Well,
first
I guess you
primary.
could, how would you ever know when it was, though? I mean,
Well, we
Refer
don't
back
know
to
right
the
now
election
because
board.
well, it varies every other year, and it's gonna change, in the future too, so.
I have a question. Why are they changing the dates? Do you know the
Uh,
answer to that?
I think the reason is the legislature thinks that there are too many election dates, and people aren't going out and vote because there's too many dates to vote. It's the legislature that's doing it, not the election board. Talk to your legislator about it, that's
think
all I can
so.
tell you.
But David, I want to go back to something you said. You said what was being discussed earlier of the specific charter amendment of the three-fourths majority was on an agenda in September.
I can't recall the exact date. I think Councilmember Moore requested it, but I can't even remember what the action was on it, whether it was
It was
voted on.
politicized,
or
and there
whether-
was no action. That's what I was getting at.
If action wasn't taken, that 6 months.
Was it voted on one way or the other?
I don't remember.
Well, it seems like to me that it was voted on. It wasn't, I mean, maybe it was tabled, but even tabling would be taking action, correct?
I believe the one in April or May, whenever that was, I believe that was voted down. But I don't honestly remember what happened the last time it was on the agenda. Apparently she has something there that'll tell you
That's
what.
what you sent us.
The dates.
But that's, I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about if that was voted on in September, then we can't vote on it again for 6 months, is what I'm talking about. That specific charter amendment that was
I don't
being
believe it
discussed.
was.
I don't remember.
It was amending in
I
general.
think Susan could probably, if you want to move on to something else and come back to this, I think Susan or John can find those minutes with that on the agenda. And I'm not sure it was September, it could have been August, might have been July. I don't, do you have any
Sometime this
specific?
year. It was
I
in
haven't-
2015, so there you go.
It's been on twice in
Sorry.
2015. Once
Well,
in
not
the
that
spring.
specific item, was it? It was just the
Yeah, I actually
changes.
prepared the documents twice.
So we can't vote on it once every 6 months? Is that what we're getting at?
If it was voted on, if no
If
action was
action was
taken,
taken.
if no action was taken, then you can. If action was taken, then it takes 6 months.
Was it specifically this question of the three-quarter?
Yes.
It was.
Both times.
Mr. Davis, I have a totally different question, though it still relates. Let's jump forward as if we schedule a date for an election. Are amendments voted on separately by the people, or is it one charter? with however
Separately.
many? So
Separately.
each amendment could be voted on separately?
Absolutely. Now, there might be some, let me clarify that. Let's say you decide to do something with the election process. There may be several sections, like the filing period and the date of the election. Those will all be intertwined so that they'll have to be voted on together. But as far as the three-fourths vote, the election, those would be totally separate propositions on the ballot.
David, this item tonight does not say that. It does not say that we're talking about three-quarter majority.
No, it doesn't say anything about that.
Right.
No, I'm just saying if that's going to be put forward as a motion tonight, because I think Mrs. Holloway was going to make that as a motion.
She did.
Okay, well then, but that can't be voted on tonight if that specifically has been voted on in the last 6 months. Regardless of how this is worded on the agenda, if that's the motion on the floor and that motion has been voted on within the last 6 months, then that violates the ordinance.
But I don't
We threw the
think we
ordinance out,
voted.
didn't we?
We didn't throw the ordinance out of 6 months review between something being voted on,
So you can't revisit something for another 6 months?
Yes.
once it's been voted on.
Yeah, that's
Well, how did I've seen votes readdressed the same night.
They can be. You can have a motion to reconsider within the meeting.
in the same meeting.
So if you do it in the same meeting, you can do it. If not, you wait 6 months.
I didn't make that rule.
Who did?
That's in the ordinance book.
We'd have to look at the date of the ordinance. Pull the book out, David. Let's look up the date.
No, it's okay.
I mean, it may precedes any of us, maybe with the exception of Mr. Shirey or Mrs. Holloway. I know it was before I was here.
I thought there were also some other other charter issues that council wanted addressed, such as council members needing to resign before they could run for mayor, or having a primary and a general election, and 12 units per acre. I mean, there were some other things that we talked about that are in the charter. Would we not want to address them at the same time as the supermajority? Or would we have a separate election for each charter revision?
I would prefer to put them all together, but Mr. Moore
One
would
are
rather
political
not.
and one is not. One is correcting a wrong, the other one are political opinions. I'm just trying to correct something that basically the citizens were lied to about.
If I'm
That's
not,
got the right to the chase.
if I'm not mistaken, the amendment or the vote that came before the city council was decided not to vote on it at all, to let it go back and allow a group of people to come back and put together a list of amendments that they wanted to address. There was term limits, there was resigning for, if a council member wanted to run for mayor, there was, I think this business that you're talking about, the 3/4% that we've been working under for years, was that we didn't realize was in the charter. I think that was brought up.
Well,
and
it's
I believe
not
there was
in the
one other.
charter.
But I
It is in
don't
the charter.
believe we voted on
Changed.
any of those. I'm almost positive we didn't vote on any of those. We said we would set it aside and come back and address those at a later date after a group had put together some more specific reasons to do this.
And section 9.2 of the charter says that we may propose a board of freeholders to prepare and propose amendments to the charter and submit for the election. So, there were several items that we've talked about during the past year that I've been on the council, and I thought our intent was to put all of those to one ballot, not vote on them individually and have separate elections, polling places, and the expenses and so forth for each item.
The answer comes.
I agree with you, that would be, in a perfect world, that would be the way to handle it. But we're very far from a perfect world.
Either July, August, or September. You got 6 choices.
Those have the agendas with them.
And I'm not for certain, Mr. Moore, whether it was voted on
I
or
think it
not.
was
I just would
voted on.
rather, I just would rather have clarification before we
No,
move
it's
forward
okay.
and trip over that.
I don't
I can't remember
remember.
if it was voted or changed.
If we have an ordinance that does not pass, they cannot bring it back for 6 months. I understand that.
But a vote, are we talking about ordinances, or are we talking about anything can't be brought up for 6 months?
Any matter, I believe it says. Any item acted upon by the city council.
Any item acted on by the city council, we're talking about it for 6 months.
I believe it's worded very closely to that.
That probably is.
I think it's previous to that.
Okay, here's what it says. An item previously decided by the city council may be placed on the agenda as a new item of business only under the following circumstances. When the vote by the city council occurred at least 6 months before the item again appears on the agenda. When the item deals with any matters dealing with initiation, prosecution, defense, or settlement of litigation brought by or against the city, its employees or agencies, and when a majority of the member of the city council present at a city council meeting direct the item to be placed on the agenda. So that's the exception, is that 5 members of the council could request an item be placed on the agenda even if it had been voted on in 6 months.
It has to have been decided, if it was tabled or not voted.
Acted upon, that's it.
Does it have to be specific, or does this agenda item cover it?
What question? I'm not following you.
She's wanting to know if item
Does
7.
this agenda item cover that? I'm sorry. Does this agenda item cover that stipulation, or does it have to be
Well,
specific?
all this item does is direct me to do something.
Okay.
So, no, this isn't covered by that. But the question would be, when you come to the item of the, once I prepare those documents, the question is, should they go back on the document to call a charter election on the same issue?
In other words, having those prepared documents, it would take 5 people to direct that to be placed on the agenda.
I'm almost sure.
If it's before the 6
We
months,
could do
if
that.
it's been, sure, absolutely, if it's been decided. And so for clarification, what does decided mean, David? Is that a vote in any form, whether it's tabling, or is that just a straight up and down on the specific issue?
Let me look at that again. Previously decided by the city council. So decided would mean to me that it was, it was voted upon in any respect. That would decide an item on the agenda.
So
If it was tabled, that would not be deciding the item.
Okay.
Did you not find those, John?
We have not found it since May 5th.
Okay, I think one of them might have been in April. Let me see that. I'll recognize that agenda item.
They're separated by yellow paper.
Mr. Mayor, could we proceed with the rest of the city council meeting and come back to this when we find a,
Well, the rest of the council meeting is just the manager's report, our comments, and the attorney's report. I mean, are you wanting me to recess this meeting and open Public Works?
go to Public Works or something like that? It's wipe those off the board and then we come back because we're just burning daylight.
Okay. I'll recess the city council meeting and open the Bethany Public Works Authority. Item 1 of the Bethany Public Works Authority is the consent docket. We have items A and B. Do we have a motion for approval on those items?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
No problem.
Cross training.
Okay. Please, oh, okay, please post your votes. Thank you. Item 2 of the Bethany Public Works Authority is receive and open bids for water treatment plant quicklime and refer to staff for recommendations. I can get it there. This only has an individual's name on the front. This is L. Hoist North America.
Yeah, these are the, I think the bidders and these are the usual suspects. Mississippi Lime, which is in,
That one's L. Hoist
Missouri.
there.
We have thought this over, and leave that to the city engineer.
Send the money back on, please.
Know what his storage is, how much he has,
Thank you.
how much he thinks he's gonna use. We should make good recommendations, but we don't get bogged down on that. Just got what we got. That's why you hire people.
okay, this bid is from L. Hoist, North America of Missouri. And they bid $196.50 per ton with a truck delivery charge of $70.35 per ton and a total bid of $120,082.50. And they also have a fuel surcharge provision.
And the second one is from Mississippi Lime, also of Missouri.
And their bid is $180.58 per ton, a truck delivery charge of $71.10 for a total bid of $113,256. And theirs indicates that theirs includes the fuel surcharge. So I would read that to mean that the fuel surcharge is not added to that one. Those are the only two bids there are.
I'd like to make a motion to refer to staff for a recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a motion by Councilmember Holloway, seconded by Councilmember Larson, to refer these bids to staff for recommendation. Please post your votes. I'm sorry, that's Trustee Holloway and Trustee Larson. Item 3 is new business. Is there any new business to come before the Bethany Public Works Authority? Hearing none, if there's no objection, we will adjourn until December 15th, 2015. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned. I'll now open the Bethany Hospital Trust. We have the consent docket items 1A and B. Do we have a motion for approval on those items?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? Please post your votes. Thank you. Is there any new business to come before the Bethany Hospital Trust? Hearing none, if there's no objection, we will adjourn until December 15th, 2015. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned. I'll now open the Bethany Development Authority. We have the consent docket items 1A and B. Do we have a motion for approval on those items?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Please post your votes. Thank you. Is there any new business to come before the Bethany Development Authority? Hearing none, if there's no objection, we will adjourn until December 15th, 2015. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned. I'll now reconvene the city council meeting. Was something found on that, David, or?
Oh, I'm still looking.
Okay.
Where's John? Where's John?
Oh, she had it, I guess it was on a special meeting. Do you remember what date it was? It was pretty far in, I know, when you handed it to me.
That wasn't it.
It was, oh, okay. I thought James was charter and
I think it died myself. Because they get to be a big fight up here.
Still looking.
Well, if that was the only one, then that definitely would be. Do you have it, John?
Yeah, March 26th.
It was in March.
March 26th.
That was my birthday.
One meeting where it was discussed, but that doesn't mean.
So it was March, I mean, if that's the case, if that's the only time it was discussed, it seemed like it had been discussed one other time, but
Well, I know I've prepared the documents twice, but I don't think it ever got to the point of.
back on an agenda.
Okay, so I was making a motion. So then we got delayed talking about, yeah, we want I want to make a motion to have the 3/4 majority vote on the charter for, on a vote to the people to change the charter. And then, David, you brought up about changing the dates. Did we ever figure out anything about changing the dates?
Well, I haven't got any language worked up right now.
Can we say fix up, or wait until,
Yeah,
in my motion, allow the attorney to get
Draft the necessary
wording
documents.
Right,
Sure, I'll be glad to do that.
okay. And you already,
you'll have an opportunity to review it all before it goes to a vote of the people, so.
okay. And you already have the wording that you need for the 3/4 majority
Yeah,
vote?
that paperwork's all done.
Are you good with that?
So,
But anyway, there'll be two items. One will be the 3/4 majority issue. The other one will be changing the date of the primary election. We don't have to change the date of the general election. The only question I would have, I guess, is that an option would be to do away with the primary election and just have one election. But what that would mean is that if you just had a general election and you had 3 people file for office, the one with the most votes would win, whereas with having a primary, if you have 3 or more people file, then, you have the top 2 running for office then, so, and that's kind of the way I assume that's why it was set up that way originally, so that you wouldn't have people being elected with less than a majority vote.
However, in the special election, that can be done.
Right,
And
there is
that
no
works
provision for a
fine.
runoff in a special election.
I mean, that
So
would have
again,
been
that could
one-
be added in the same charter review process. That could be added that special elections follow the regular election protocol as far as a general and a runoff if needed, or a primary and a runoff, or a primary and a general, or, however that needs to be worded.
Well, and as I was reading the charter, I thought, one of the things we should probably think about is whether we really need a primary and a general election for a city. So I thought that was one of the things that a committee could consider. So maybe,
which is why, I mean, it was, I think, the opinion last time that getting all of these things looked at and moved forward, and putting that all on together, was better than trying to take care of some of it and then turn around and having another election.
piecemeal.
Well, I feel that other than the general housekeeping bills that we're proposing to take care of tonight, the three-quarter majority and the other election about the
Changing the
dates
We're
need
taking
to,
from the
need to,
legislature.
need to be taken care of, I think, before we can really have a true and honest election.
Right, and we're getting ready to vote on that, because I've already made a motion, and we're gonna have a motion.
And then
If I
we-
get a
then-
second, then we'll vote on it, and we'll see how it goes. Okay.
Then we'll come back and haggle this political end of this thing at some
So,
other time.
one of my questions, though, is, David, for me to understand again, if we go ahead and choose a date that, for the 2017 in February, that is a date that they have said that they're having an election, could we choose that? You said it was 2017, right? The election of
Yes.
2017?
That's the next election you'll
Okay.
have, is
It
2017.
has
So-
to be turned in by the 9th, I think, of December to the election board.
Of this year, of 2016?
No.
Next year.
16. If you're gonna do it in 16.
No, this is for the year 2017.
17, okay.
It'll have to be in December,
But
the
in answer to
filing
your
period will have to
question,
be
what
in
I'll do
16.
is, I'll pick the date that looks most logical to me under the current dates that are available from the election board.
And so we're just gonna.
And then I'll also put with that a list of other options that you could change at the meeting if you wanted to. In other words, there's not a, I mean, I guess in theory, you could even move the general election to May or something if you wanted to, but I assumed you wanted to keep the general election in April, and I'm just gonna try to find the date that fits best with that, because there's gonna have to be a time frame between the two elections to give the election board time, number one, to send out absentee ballots to allow overseas military to vote, and also to allow time for a filing period. So all that's going to have to be looked at, and I'll just put together what I think's the most logical approach to it and give you some other options that you can look at when I send it out.
As far as for scheduling votes,
As far as
as
what?
far as the scheduling of votes.
Yeah.
Are you saying the three-quarter majority vote could not be on an election before 2017?
No, we don't have a council election until 2017.
So he's saying
Everyone's in office until 2017.
that charter election could wait until late 2016 to be corrected in order to be able to have our vote
Right.
when we need to.
Because I thought if we're going to wait that long, we may as well do the
But
whole thing.
what that's gonna do is, that's gonna affect the filing period too, depending on what date we pick for the primary election. It may move the filing period even back to December. So we'll just have to look at all that,
And so you want to go ahead and get this done sooner than later, so we don't get
well,
in
you know,
trouble as we push it on
your
out?
deadline to call the election's gonna be December of 2016, unless we have to set the primary in January. And if we do, then it's probably gonna be November of 2016, so
When's the earliest we can have a charter election?
we have to give 60 days notice to the election board, and then you have to pick a date that the legislature has said is available to you.
So early 2016, I'm guessing.
There are lots of days available in 2016 to have the election. I mean, it's not that limited at this point. There's
Okay.
almost a date in every month.
So again, you feel it's best to go ahead and get that kind of housekeeping thing cleaned up in the charter?
Well, if you're gonna have the election, I'd suggest you do them both at the same time because of the economic aspect of it. I think that last election cost, how much? Be a citywide election, so about 18,000 for a citywide election.
Okay, so again, my motion is for the three-quarter majority vote and to change the dates for the election in 2017. Is that good enough?
Yeah, what I'll do, I'll prepare the documents. I'll send them out in advance of the meeting to all of you. And if there are options, I'll put those in there as well for you to think about.
We're gonna do it so that it's kind of generic, so we can still have an election.
I'll have a
without
new
any-
provision in there for that says if those dates that we've picked are outlawed, that we don't have to amend the charter, the city council can adopt a new election date by ordinance.
Second.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? We have a motion and a second. Please post your votes. All right, item 8 is the city attorney's report. David?
I don't have any items that weren't on the agenda. I was just trying to think. I doubt that I'll have that language to you by your next meeting, but I'll get it out as soon as I can because that's going to take some time to sort out the election part. The rest of it's already done, as I told you, but it's just going to take a little bit to sort all that out.
All right, item 9 is the city manager's report. John?
My items were on the agenda. I have asked Danielle to just give a few brief remarks concerning a lot of the comments we're getting on our comprehensive plan. So, Danielle, go ahead. We had a lot of public input, and it's remarkable to have that much input.
Yes, as you all know, we are working on the comprehensive plan. We've had so far in the last 2 rounds of surveys, probably close to about 200 surveys that's come in, probably a little more than that recently. Well, this stack here is the surveys themselves. But most of the remarks are, a lot of them are thanking us for going through this process and getting the public input. The people are really happy that we're able to get to this point and ask them for what problems they see, what the future they think would be working for Bethany, and a lot of that was obvious remarks as far as more retail development, looking at different ways. There's some really neat ideas that were thrown out to us. There's also a lot of thinking of the police and fire departments for different things that they do on a daily basis. Of course, remarks about the water quality. But overall, we've gotten a lot of good responses, and so I think by going through this, we've gotten a lot of good citizenship and kind of gone through, well, we've gone through a lot of turmoil with different things this past year, and I think going through this process has kind of mended some of those bridges. At least I'd like to think that, and based on the comments I've seen a lot of thanking us for going through this and doing this process. And if you do have questions as far as where the comp plan stands or anything like that, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
We're a little bit behind in where we thought we would be on our planning. Some of our consultants have been ill and were unable to come and help us. But the steering committee continues to meet without them. And Mr. Carlson is the chairman of the steering committee, and Mr. Moon is also a member of that committee. We've had a lot of really good open discussions. We've tried to have the meetings at different locations in the city so the members can get a flavor of the facilities that are available. And I found them all very interesting, and I look forward to continuing to work on this important project. That concludes my report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Does what the planner is doing, does that involve any cataloging or of those responses or any statistical analysis or anything?
I haven't done any. I was going to do some just on my.
No, I
wanna
was
say-
asking, are
The consultants are. They have compiled, they're having a presentation that's going to be presented to the steering committee and the technical
and
advisory
it'll
committee.
involve their analysis
And it'll
of
involve
those.
a lot of the analysis so far of the surveys. Some of them they haven't gotten recently, just because I've got backlogged with a lot of the surveys, but they'll be going through those and have gone through several of them and kind of compiled them as far as statistically what people are saying.
At 200 count, the total from the beginning, not this second survey that went out?
That's including both of them.
One and two.
Right, and there's probably more than that. Like I said, this is the stack of the surveys, and this isn't all of them either. I have quite a few more in my office, so.
The mayor also asked me to let you know that he has called a special meeting for next Tuesday, which will be the day after Pearl Harbor Day, December 8th at 7:30 here in the council chambers. You'll hear a report from Dewberry. They're our architect that we've selected to work on our library site. They've done a lot of work. I'll be getting their report out to you this week. It's 13 megabytes, so it may take a while to either print or send by email. The executive summary is the part that's most important. It's only 12 pages long, so I would encourage you to read it prior to the meeting at 7:30 next Tuesday. So, and you will not get extra credit, Mr. Moore, for attending the meetings you missed, but I'm glad to see you anyway, okay?
It's sorry for the special meeting, but that's when they were available
Yeah,
and in town.
Right, they'll
to do
be
that.
here to do other work, and that's just the dates that it worked out. They're working fast as they can.
All right.
What was the time on that, the evening time?
It's 7:30, a regular
7:30?
meeting time. Gives you a chance to eat supper.
That sounds great to me.
Well, he eats at 3:30.
Okay.
Item 10 is council members' announcements, comments, and proposals. Councilmember Harris, I'll start with you tonight.
Well, I got back into town last night, so I missed all the ice storms and everything else that happened. But I was following it on Facebook and email and the news and everything else. And I just want to really thank our residents for their patience and their attitude. I read stories of people who were taking chainsaws door to door and cutting down the trees and helping with it, and going door to door with soup and sandwiches, and going door to door checking on people who were shut-ins. And I just really appreciate that neighborly spirit that happened, and that's just another great thing about living in Bethany.
Absolutely. Thank you. Councilmember Holloway?
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Moore? Councilmember Lundstrom?
Well, I assumed John's report would have included when we can put the limbs out, so you mind if I go ahead and do that, John?
Floor is yours.
Go ahead.
You could put your limbs out now and be
Yes,
in
you can.
preparation, but the city staff will be coming by December the 7th, the week of December 7th, and they're picking those up, I assume, 1 or 2 trips through town?
Well, hopefully what we'll do is we'll make one trip. We'll start on the north and work our way south. We'll have to use the truck with the arm because some of these trees are
Huge.
fairly good sized. And then we'll go back and make sure that we picked up any stragglers. But we wanted to give people an opportunity to get it at the curb.
Yeah. And also, if you missed your chance on that, you can also take it to City Hall or Public Works. City Hall, right here on the north side. Actually, you can put it in John's parking spot back here.
Well, I've already removed.
There's already something in there.
Right.
Yeah.
But
If
you can take it up
it
to Public Works.
though, they will charge you.
Yeah, for $7 a cubic yard.
So
You can take it up there.
we don't have, the governor has declared all 77 counties a disaster area, which is the first step in receiving FEMA assistance. But since the state doesn't have any money to pay their 10%, I'm dubious that we'll get any assistance from them this go around.
And I suppose that's all I have. Thank you.
All right.
Mayor?
Yes.
I did have one thing that I thought of.
Too bad. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I wait till next meeting?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I did want to say thank you to Councilmember Herron. At his first meeting, our last meeting, he was kind enough to bring cupcakes that his family made, and those were delicious. So I did want to say thank you for that.
Well, I want to say, where's
Yeah.
this week's
You make yours
cupcake
right,
is
make it.
all I want to know. And Curtis, yours was delicious, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, yours was great, Curtis. I had half of it.
Go ahead, Councilmember Larson.
I have something I want to share from one of our citizens, if I may. She says, "I just want everyone to know how awesome Bethany is. I manage several rent houses all over the metro, and they were trashed. No one around picked up branches out of the street or offered to help their neighbors. But at all of my Bethany houses, the trees were pushed out of the streets and the branches were broken down and cleaned. I could truly see how much Bethany residents care about their neighbors and the city. You all are all awesome." Just affirming what Mrs. Harris said, it's even in our own neighborhood, our ward, I've seen it time and time and again, people helping people and going and moving limbs for those that can't. And the small town goodness is definitely in Bethany, and I'm proud to be a part of that. Do want to encourage all the council members to be here next Tuesday. The library presentation is going to be awesome. I think you'll be impressed. And as every holiday season, I want to remind us that we have people amongst us that have lost loved ones, or their health is not the best, or they're just flat out alone. And as you're celebrating the holidays, I encourage you to pick up the phone or go knock on the door and take them to lunch or include them in your family get-togethers. We had the opportunity to share with one of our neighbors over the Thanksgiving holidays that had lost her husband this past year. And I'm grateful to my family, to receiving people they don't know and making them feel a part. And the response of her later was just beyond words. And the blessing to me came from her having a good time and not being alone. So I encourage you that if you haven't ever done that before, do it. You'll be blessed. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Herron.
I worked around the city a lot the last several days, and most of the homes I was working at, all the neighbors were coming together, helping each other. It is great to be a part of this city, and also the city workers clearing debris out of the street so people could pass through. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilmember Shirey.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This recent storm, we're going to have a major cleanup effort. We're going to have a major cleanup effort. There's a lot of it. And I don't think the one pickup will get it. I just don't think that unless it's backed off some, because of the number of trees that are down and are sitting on the side of the street right now. This looks like a week's worth of work just to get that done. And then I know that you've got to move them out of your backyards around to the front, so you're going to have another. And this was a major general storm, and I think we should make an effort to get the city cleaned up as far as those trees go. And I think we should make it very clear that this is a tree pickup type response that the city is willing to make and spend thousands and thousands of dollars on. Although we probably may have a difficult time of financing it, we need to do this to make our city look presentable. And this is something that we just need to take a good hard effort at. And I hope everybody had a very happy Thanksgiving. I know I did. It was went to my first time I went to my family other than our house for Thanksgiving. We have enough grandchildren and children to put on a really deluxe lunch, but it had to be out of Bethany, and that really bothers me. That really bothers me to no end. Let me see, I had a happy, okay, the park areas, do we intend to clean those up first, or are we going to clean up the streets before we clean the park areas?
Streets will be first, and then we'll worry about the parks later. Obviously, we're talking about the limbs that are in the street, not, on the side of the street.
On the side of the street. And I think we should take a long, hard look at some sort of a remedial track to this thing of the trees that went down in the street, because it was very difficult to get around on Sunday morning of the 16th, I believe, in the 16th, that because of the streets were full of trees. And I think we should do something about cutting those trees back to get them out of the streets. I know the overhanging trees in streets add some ambiance to the neighborhood, but this type of situation, they are a major risk. So, because it's a high time for the possibility of fires in houses due to electrical shorts, and we need to keep these streets clean as much as possible so our fire and rescue equipment can get up and down the streets. And I will have to make apologies to the people I represent in Ward 4. I was unable to dress appropriately tonight for myself because my house was so dark I couldn't pick out a tie to go with the suit that I was going to wear. And next week, if I do have some electricity, I will definitely be dressed as I usually am. Thank you.
I have heard that generators do not function closet lights, so I can imagine your.
Hey, my closets are back in a hole and I can't see, I can't see in them.
It's a black hole.
And trying to match a tie to a suit with a little, one of these little flashlights we have now is really difficult because you get a blue cast.
If my memory serves me right, you could see the tie that you typically wear at Christmas time in the dark anyway, couldn't you?
Well, it's not Christmas time yet. I got to say that for the folks.
Councilmember Knapp, follow that.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Mayor. I'm without full electricity too, but one of the things besides all of our citizens that have been helping each other and just having a lot of patience, I want to thank all the linemen out there that are working long days and have come in from out of town, and all of the electricians that are putting in a lot of time, and neighbors helping neighbors with tree removal and legitimate tree removal services. I want to stress that. I was going to also mention the limb pickup, but that's already been addressed. And I will have some out there as soon as I get the rest of them off my roof. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I will piggyback on that limb removal. As Randy mentioned, starting December 7th up in the north part of town. But remember, as you put that stuff out by the curb, the equipment we use to grab that, make sure it's not near a gas meter or anything like that. And we request, too, that be kept at a length less than 10 feet, I believe that is, for the purposes of loading that in the equipment that we have. So if you're able to cut that smaller than 10 feet, keep that in a highly accessible place very near the curb, that equipment can come through and grab that and load it up. And you know what is obviously it's tragic that people have damage at their homes and are without power, and that becomes a big interruption to our daily lives. But I mean, the impact that this can have on our budget is significant as well. Storms like this can cost the city close to $200,000 to go clean up. By the time we pay to haul all of that off, the tipping fees at the dumps, the overtime that we have, and those things, I mean, they can be incredibly significant, easily six figures on a storm this size. So, you know, I mean, obviously, that's exactly why we set money aside every year in our budget, and a significant amount of money for these types of unknowns that occur. You know, what's a little unnerving to me is how early this one has come in comparison to some we've had. I mean, we could be in for several of these this winter that could really quickly run the budget numbers up. So obviously, the only thing we're going to pick up is direct storm damaged limbs. We're not going to pick up other trash or debris that, you know, you've collected, or things that you should have got out at big junk pickup. So please beware that the city's only going to pick up those items for free that are those storm-related tree branches. If you have some other things, you can pay to haul that off, or as John mentioned, you can take it up to Public Works and pay to dump it there. So please get out and help your neighbors, and do what you can to get that out to the curb, so that hopefully we can make it in one pass. There's always going to be some that we don't, but
One of the things I have noticed twice in the last 2 days, people are putting their limbs around, on top of, or extremely near fire hydrants. And the first thing I can think about is there's a fire, and the firemen are going to have to try to move those limbs. And nothing was said about that in the flyer that we got. So I'd like to say, I don't think they're supposed to be putting them there either, right?
well, at least enough access to get around them and do what needs to be done. I don't know what distance that is, but I would imagine we want to keep them pretty far away from that,
Right.
as well as gas meters and things of that nature.
Several years ago, we allowed people to drop off in Eldon Lyon Park excess cuttings that they wanted to take out of their yard.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
I'll give them your telephone number if you want us to do that.
no,
They'll probably give us the
I would prefer that you do it, and allow them a place to take them. And this $7 tipping fee that you're talking about at the city barn, I think is extremely excessive, because we're going to have to pay for that in tipping fees that they would normally do. If they're willing to take them up there, I think we ought to drop that fee, because it'll save us in the overtime or the straight time charges, as well as the amount of equipment wearage and use.
The problem is, it costs us more than $7 a yard.
I understand that, John.
To handle it, so.
I understand that, but it costs more than $7 a yard to go out and pick it up alongside the streets too.
It's cheaper to pick it up in the truck and haul it down there. It's the easiest way for everyone, but we'll examine everything, and if city council wants to fill Eldon Lyon Park up with tree branches, we can do that, and rent a chipper and chip it all up, and
Sell it back to our disposal plant.
I could, but that's a long-term process too.
Well, I understand that, John. We got to be innovative.
We've got about 10 people to do the work, so that's the problem.
Let's be innovative.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, that flyer does in fact say do not place items for pickup around fire hydrants, gas meters, under low-lying trees, or directly under overhead lines. So,
I overlooked that.
yeah, that's fine. Or small cars.
Like blue ones?
Electric cars. Half a car.
Yeah, JR is mentioning, try not to stack those over your water meter as well, that we're having to estimate some of those because they're buried under the limbs. So if you can avoid that at all, please do. Is there any new business to come before the Bethany City Council? Hearing none, if there's no objection, we will adjourn until December 15th, 2015. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned, and that concludes tonight's business. Thank you.